Okay.
Well, welcome on in to another episode of Nate Hit the Foul Pole. And, I just want to get this out of the way first. Daniel Kep is not able to make it tonight, so we're doing our best to reschedule him. But I'm here with Matthew Pine, as always. How you doing, Matt?
Doing pretty well, Zach. Doing pretty well. Draft week happened, and we got a lot to talk about on tonight's pod.
Yeah, we do. I'm going to cover all the Orioles picks and give out our draft grades. I guess we should start with Heston Kjerstad, who I think we had, not the best reactions to last Wednesday. So I guess we should start off with him. Matt, what were your thoughts on Kjerstad?
Well, overarching thoughts. When the pick happened, I was just way more in shock than I was, disappointed or, happy about it. I don't think anybody really seriously took the rumors that, they were going to go under slot, they were going to save money and use it later in the draft. I'd say 80% sure that they were going to take Austin Martin, if not maybe somebody like Nick Gonzalez. But they did go with Heston Kjerstad, and if you watched the show on Wednesday, saw the live draft show, you saw our instant reaction. And, at this point in time, 2 days removed, I'm a little bit more calm about the situation, a little more settled down. After watching some film on him, he's clearly has enormous power from the left side, second, maybe third best power in the whole draft behind Torque and maybe some, another guy. But looking at this, where they got him at number 2, and obviously we can have a discussion about this. I'm giving the grade of Heston Kjerstad a C for that pick, and I'm definitely anxious to hear what you have to say about him.
Well, first and foremost, I want to apologize to Heston Kjerstad because I was wrong. And I was really wrong. Obviously, I think I was just as much in shock as you were. I was probably, reacting on emotion to Austin Martin not being the pick. And, I was thinking he was going to be the pick for 5 months or so. So came as quite of a shock. But I want to apologize to Heston Kjerstad because he is truly an elite hitter. And after watching, days of tape on him now and just, he is a complete hitter. He's got power. He can hit to all fields, foul pole to foul pole power. This guy is the real deal as a hitter. He is going to be an absolute machine in the middle of the order with Adley Rutschman, Trey Mancini, Ryan Mountcastle. It's going to be a pretty unbelievable middle of the lineup. And then obviously you've got Austin Hayes at the top of the lineup. It's a perfect complement to what Mike Elias is building. I'm a huge fan of this now. I wasn't back then, but watching more, I really like Heston Kjerstad. There might be still a few guys I would have taken over him, but I do think he fits the system very well. I'm going to give this draft grade an A because I was wrong. There's a lot more to him than I gave him credit for. He's even a better defender than I gave him credit for. This one's a little bit better than I thought, so I'll go with an A.
So what do we think in terms of an ETA, time of arrival, in the next couple of years?
I think his bat is almost about as ready as Adley Rutschman's is. I think they're very close. Obviously, I think with the minor league season not happening this year, it's going to push it back a little bit. I would say probably 2022 at the earliest, maybe even the end of 22 at the latest. I think Kjerstad's going to move through the minors really quick. I know Glenn Clark Radio this morning was saying how quickly he could move through because he is just an elite hitter. He's so good at everything at the plate. So that will get him up into the majors really quick, and I think in the middle of the lineup real quick.
Yeah, I have the same. I have 2022. Even, with the lost season this year for minor league players, I think Kjerstad doesn't have a whole lot left in his game that needs to be developed. He does have, that strong throwing arm, not great speed, decent speed. The power is there. It's not like you have to remake his swing. So Orioles have tons of outfielders in the minor league system that are, basically on the precipice of playing. But I think, he's probably ranks as your third or fourth best prospect as of right now, and I could see him getting kind of the fast track to the big leagues.
Yeah, and you talk about third or fourth, but where do you think he'll be ranked inside the top 100 and then maybe inside the Orioles organization?
Yeah, I saw, I guess, speculation. It was either from you or somebody in our group chat today that said he would be like right around 75, which I don't know if that's accurate or not. I mean, you look at the rankings from last year. Number 2 in the draft was a top 20 prospect, in Bobby Witt Jr. I don't think that's going to be the case this year, especially looking at the consensus rankings. Didn't have him as a top 5 player in the draft, so it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out.
That was actually not me. That was Carlos Collazo, actually.
Okay.
Said he'd be around 75 on BA, probably around the same on Pipeline. I think that's a pretty fair where, I would put him. And like you said, probably 3 or 4 behind Grayson Rodriguez and Adley Rutschman for the Orioles. It's obviously not as exciting to have our number 2 overall pick be number 75 in the top 100. But I think as soon as people, see him start to hit, he'll rise up pretty quick. And I think he'll be probably top 30 in the next year or so. If he has such a great minor league season, which he probably will, he'll hit so well. But yeah, I think that, he's going to be a quick riser and he'll be up here really quick. So let's move on to.
I did want to have one quick thing left on Kjerstad. I know you mentioned how he fits perfectly, like Elias. I think he's going to fit perfectly in the lineup. I think you look at that left-handed power in ballparks across the AL East, in Camden Yards, Yankee Stadium, Fenway Park. I mean, that fits perfectly for that right field, right field fence. So I think that's a really smart pick. And as we'll talk about, the rest of this draft was very much analytically driven.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely analytically driven. This is definitely the Mike Elias draft of all Mike Elias drafts.
Yeah.
I'm sure Sig had big impact on this draft as well.
Oh, yeah.
But let's move on to Jordan Westburg from Mississippi State, the shortstop. This was another pick that we were not too happy with on the live stream, and let's get your thoughts on him.
Yeah, this is my lowest grade of the entire draft. I gave it a D. That's probably being a little bit too harsh because I think Jordan Westburg is actually a pretty good player. His double play partner there at Mississippi State, Foscue, was actually rated ahead of him, but I don't really see him being a worse player. I gave this draft grade a D just because I wanted a college pitcher really bad here or a high school pitcher. Jared Kelly was still on the board. A guy like Carmen Lodzinski was still on the board. And Cole Wilcox, JT Ginn, you can go down the list. So I don't really have too many issues with the player Westburg. I have more issue of where he was taken. I would have preferred him to be maybe their second or third round pick.
Yeah, I gotta agree with that. And I was mad about him on Wednesday, and I'm still kind of mad about it. I didn't love the pick. I thought there were a lot of better options. I really wanted Nick Bitsko. Unfortunately, he went to the Rays. But I did think there were better options. Even a guy like JT Ginn, I think, was worthy of taking at number 30. And obviously, Tanner Burns or anybody else who went, a college player or a high school pitcher that went a little bit below where we took Westburg. But Westburg, yeah, I mean, he's got a lot of work to do. I think he's going to be kind of a project.
Mm-hmm.
The glove's kind of there, but I think there's still some development, and he might have to move to third. The bat's also kind of there, but I think there's going to be some, raw power tapping into to do, and he might not hit for that much average in the beginning. So I think this is a guy they're looking, to develop analytically and develop through, now one of the premier player development destinations in the majors. So I would say that, this pick didn't thrill me. I'm going to give it a C-. I just was not too thrilled with this. And like you said, I don't hate the player necessarily. I just really didn't like where they took him. So this one I really haven't flip-flopped on at all. But what are you looking at ETA-wise for Westburg?
Well, like you said, he's got some issues. He's got a lot of swing and miss in his game. So that's got to be something that's going to be addressed. Although analytical models don't really penalize players for that. But I gave him an ETA of 2023, just that extra year, just to kind of slowly bring him along. And, maybe you could see the beginning of 2023, him coming up again with this so much uncertainty with this baseball season, that kind of moves everybody back a year. But, it's something that you hope with your wedge pick in between your first and your second round, it's somebody who can get there quickly. I think we look at a guy like Caden Grenier, who's kind of on that same fast track that they can hope that they can develop the bat and his defense is there. But, there's definitely some question marks with this guy. I think the Orioles would have rather had a Nick Bitsko, like you mentioned, or maybe another high school or college arm at this pick, but that wasn't the case. And they went with the top guy on the board.
Yeah, I think that's probably the case. And I'm looking at also 2023 for an ETA. I think that's fair. He's
Mhm.
going to have to work out some kinks in his game, but this is a guy who could possibly be, the future on the left side of the infield. I just want to see a little bit more from him. I'd like to see a couple good minor league seasons put together, and obviously that can happen this year. But he'll probably rank, I think, in the teens or maybe early 20s, the Orioles top 100 or the Orioles top 30. And obviously he won't make the top 100. But this pick, I want to see improve himself. I want to see him really improve the swing. I want to see him improve the strikeouts, improve the defense. But this is a high risk pick that I think if it works out, he could be a pretty good player. So we'll just have to see.
Yeah, definitely.
So let's move on to the Orioles' second pick of the second round, second overall pick, and that was Hudson Haskin. So what was your thoughts on Hudson Haskin, someone we didn't cover in the live stream?
First of all, I love the alliteration, double H. Haskin, I really didn't know a whole lot about him when they drafted him there. I wasn't happy at the time, but I've really come around to him. He's an interesting type prospect just because his swing is super wonky. Like it looks like a 100 pence almost swing. So looking at his tools, he's got plus speed. I was listening to the press conference with the director of domestic scouting, Brad Seelick, and he said he's got plus speed, and that's kind of a reason they looked at him there, not only on the base pass but also defensively. And he does have somewhat of a pretty good hit tool too. I gave this pick a B plus. I think this was maybe the second or the third best pick in the entire draft, and I'm curious to hear what you have to say.
Kind of what you said, I guess. I think this is the highest upside pick of all of them. I do think that if Haskin works out, he's a potential 5-tool player. I think that you're looking at Austin Hayes as a kind of model for this guy to move out through the organization. I think they have very similar tools.
Mm-hmm.
And that was brought up to me by Chris Resitar. I think he made a really good comp there.
Mm-hmm.
I think you see the arm strength. I think you see the fielding there. He's got the plus speed, maybe even a bit more athletic than Austin Hayes is at this point. The bat's going to come along, I think. Tulane isn't the best baseball school. Obviously, it's not one of the top programs, but it's still a respectable place to hit 327 as he did last year.
D1.
And I think this is a pretty good pick. I initially liked it. I just think there's 5-tool potential there, and you can't really argue with that. I'm going to give this a B minus. I think there's, a lot of work to do for him too. His swing is like Hunter Pence, like you said. It's really weird. The Orioles will have to work with that and figure out how to fix that. But it's a pretty good pick. And if this pans out, this could be the best pick of the draft if it ends up panning out the way we think it is. What were you thinking ETA wise?
So ETA, I'm thinking kind of similar to the first two guys just because they're all college guys. I gave this, just like Westburg, I gave it 2023. I think he probably doesn't have as much maybe development defensively, but it's kind of bringing all those tools together and maybe employing some analytics into his game and seeing kind of how that helps him play and understand, launch angle and things of that nature. So I said 2023, not too far off.
Yeah, well, Austin Hayes was the fastest player to reach the majors from the 2016 draft. So maybe Haskin is on a quick development path like Hayes is, and if he works out that hit tool, he could be up here very quick. I think 2023 is also the way to go with a college player who's not as developed like this. He's obviously no Kjerstad. He's not as great of a player as Kjerstad is yet. But this was a solid pick. I really did like this pick. I think there's just so much potential there and so much room to grow for Haskin. The name's great, by the way. He's got a dog picture as his Instagram profile. So this guy's just great. We love Hudson Haskin.
Yep. And looks like we're moving on. The next guy we have to talk about is Anthony Servideo. What do you have on him?
Yes, Servideo is probably my least favorite pick of the draft. This one just didn't do much for me. I like drafting shortstops, but I like drafting high school shortstops. College shortstops usually have that limited offensive profile that I'm not a huge fan of. Servideo, he's got the glove. He's got the arm. He's a slick fielder. I think you look at Caden Grenier as a kind of very similar player coming out of college. This guy is going to make your flashy plays. He's going to stick it short. He's probably the best pure defender at short we have in the system right now, even over a guy like Adam Hall. Or even Joey Ortiz, I should say. This is
Okay.
he's a great defender. It's a glove first guy. Servideo, the bat kind of came along this year. People are trying to say that this might be, his breakout year in college, but I'm not going to buy that after, 16 or 17 games yet. I want to see a little more from him. I'm going to give it a D plus. I think there were a lot of better options here as well. That's a scorcher, I know, but I think there are just a lot of better options. I think the bat's still a little bit far off, but again, there's potential here. There's a ton of potential. I love left-handed hitting shortstops, which is great. And he did hit a home run off Reed Detmers, hit a home run off Ace Lacy this year. Really struggled in the Cape Cod League. Only hit 149, which is obviously a wood bat league, so it's a pretty good indicator of how he'll do in the minors possibly. But let's get your thoughts on him.
Yeah, not quite as low as you are, but I gave him a C, kind of middle of the road type dude. Obviously, like you mentioned, defensive wizard, and he really struggled in the Cape Cod, like you also mentioned. But I think last season he really kind of emerged. He had an over 1,000 OPS in the SEC conference, which is not easy to do whatsoever. And I think the Orioles may be employing this strategy of getting some of these risers that maybe teams overlooked, and they're snagging these guys and saying maybe they can ride off that momentum. So he's somebody I kind of look for to progress somewhat quickly. It's just all on his bat. I think just like Caden Grenier, just like Joey Ortiz, it's just all going to be on the bat and to see. And maybe his ceiling is a utility guy, and that's fine. But I think his glove will kind of carry him through.
I think the Orioles have a lot of Anthony Servideos in their system right now, which is one of the reasons I didn't like the pick. Again, it's not that I don't like the player. I do like Servideo. I think there's a lot of upside here. It's just I don't really see this as the best pick at the spot. We do have a lot of glove for shortstops. We have Ortiz. We have Grenier. It's just kind of fits the model of what we already have, and that's fine. And maybe one of them works out. Maybe I'm getting too caught up on the offensive shortstops of the world like Lindor, Gleyber Torres. But it's always good to have a great glove. Mike Borda could tell you that all day. But this pick I think could have been a little better. I'm seeing maybe 2024 for Servideo, but maybe if he develops even faster, we could see him earlier than that. That's a little late for a college player, but that's probably where I'll put him at.
Yeah, I said 2023 as well as my previous two picks. You might be right with that 2024. I think they put an increased emphasis, and you've seen that with the last two drafts. They want guys up the middle, and they want guys who are playing against top competition. And I think that's kind of baked into their draft strategy along with their analytical models. And this guy was kind of not probably their first pick that wasn't really offensive minded. So I think that's kind of an important takeaway. So if they don't draft for need, but if they are drafting for, in quotes, need, then they got their defensive guy in Servideo.
Yeah, said well. We got a question coming in from Justin. With the influx of middle infield into the system along with the current guys, who do you see starting in the infield in Baltimore when it all shakes out? And I think this is such a tough question because we're so far off, and obviously so many high school guys are in the system now. We got Mayo, who we'll talk about next here. I'm probably thinking that when it's all said and done, the Orioles are winning a World Series. If that happens.
Yeah.
I think that we'll probably have a few free agents playing there and not exactly homegrown guys because we don't have that premier talent yet. But if it all shakes out like it is right now, I would say probably, Gunnar Henderson at third base. We're probably looking at one of Servideo or Grenier or Ortiz at shortstop. Can't project it yet. And then at second base, maybe Adam Hall. I think it's pretty wide open right now.
You named every one of my guys, I was going to say.
Yeah, I think it's pretty wide open. There's such a long amount of work to do before I think this infield is set. If we look at the outfield right now, it's so stacked. I mean, there are just prospects on prospects on prospects. You've got Yusniel Diaz, Austin Hayes, Anthony Santander, Heston Kjerstad coming in now. It's just an unbelievable amount of talent, and we don't really have that in the infield. We're set at catcher, we're set at first base, but the infield is still very unfinished.
I got a curveball for you.
Yeah.
What if the second baseman of the future is Chance Sisco?
Well, he's gonna have to learn how to hit, and then we'll talk.
Sir. He's got that. He's got that nailed down.
I was a big Chance Sisco fan coming out, and
Yep.
I think he was obviously a top 100 prospect for years on years and years.
Mm-hmm.
Hasn't really ever reached that kind of potential that we all thought he had.
Yep.
So that's kind of disappointing for me on him, but it's possible. I mean, the Orioles could start playing him there. He played there in high school, so it's always a possibility.
I think at some point they're going to have to move one of these guys in a trade. I don't think you're going to be able to have this influx of talent and have nowhere to play them. I mean, this is not even including Ryan Mountcastle, who might be a corner outfielder when it's all said and done. So they're going to have to either part with one of these guys or move them around the outfield or the infield.
Yeah, I think it's worth another show to kind of explore some trade possibilities with some of these guys. What we could do in the next few years to, bolster this system right now, and especially getting a guy like Carlos Correa, who Mike came up with, and and getting that influx of talent on your infield as more of a veteran player, a star player. It's what the Padres did with Machado. They paid him a ton of money to be the guy they built around with Tatis. So I think the Orioles will probably take that route in a few years, maybe one or two.
Right.
But that's probably worth another show. So yeah, let's move on to the next pick here. And Matt, let's have you introduce him.
Sure. That would be the high school third baseman, Kobe Mayo. I like this pick a lot, and this was their first presumable overslot guy. They had the most money in the draft, and they presumably saved money with Haskin Kjerstad, maybe a couple million with him. There have been reports coming out today that John Heyman said that he signed for $1.7 million. I believe Joe Trezza was the guy who said it's not official yet, not a done deal. So we'll have to see over the next few days if that is in fact intact. But I like him a lot. He's got a lot of potential. He's already 6'5" as a high school player. Some might question the bat, but I think he reminds me somewhat of like a Ryan Mountcastle. But he does have that, that strong throwing arm. So that's kind of a differentiating factor there. Maybe he's a guy like, Gunnar Henderson, who's like 6'5", super tall, super raw, and then they can move off that position. And in the end, I actually gave this A-. This is the second best grade I gave in the entire draft, and I'm like to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with everything you said. I love the Ryan Mountcastle comp, and I did love this pick. This is definitely one of my favorite picks of the draft. When you have this much plus power and this arm, a 65 arm, 55 power, but they say both could be possible 70 tools in the future. It's unfortunate that he probably won't stick at third base, but you're looking at a really, really nice player right here. And this is a guy that wasn't really deemed that signable for so many other teams, and we got him. And I think this is a really good move. I love the Mountcastle profile. I also want to say that Mountcastle actually had a 60 arm coming out of high school, so even more similar profile. I don't know what they got wrong there, because clearly that wasn't right.
And both guys are from Florida too.
Both guys are from Florida, as most of the Orioles are, it seems like.
Or Texas.
Yeah, it seems like a lot. But yeah, this was a great pick. I gave this an A- as well. I think that's very, very fair. I just think there's so much room to grow into this absolute monster on the hot corner. I mean, I just think that much arm and that much power, it's just so projectable.
Yeah, and what do you think in terms of an ETA for a high school guy?
That's tough. I think 2024 at the earliest. He's only 18 years old. That's going to be a long road of development here. I could be wrong. He could be 17. So he's actually 18, but he's a big kid already. It's not like he has to put that much weight on. He's already got the bat. He's just going to have to, work on some things, and he'll be up there real quick. The defense obviously is one thing maybe to work on.
Yeah, and I'm doing just doing the math in my head. I said 2025, and the reason I say that is because I'm doing the math on DL Hall. DL Hall was, and it's different between pitchers, high school pitchers, and high school bats. But I'm doing the math on him. He was drafted in 2017, so that was already 3 years ago, and he hasn't even played a Bowie yet. So I kind of, like Elias has shown the strategy of, we're going to take every player one affiliate at a time, and not rush them. Make sure their development is good to go by the time they're hitting the big league. So 2024 is probably a little bit more optimistic. It's possible, but I see maybe 2025 is really when he comes into his own.
Yeah, that's definitely fair. And it brings up another interesting point of, will he be ready by the time that we're competitive again? And obviously that's a little bit questionable, because obviously we don't know when we'll be competitive. But when you get guys up like Gray Rod and DL Hall, which are very
Yep.
soon, and then Adley Rutschman, Heston Kjerstad, Mountcastle, and Hayes, and all these great prospects that you've been building for years and years are going to start coming up here. And this is going to be a pretty decent team in 2 years or so, if all these guys pan out. And Diaz, of course, too. I mean, it's just so much talent coming in. These high school guys are left behind a little bit. They'll start becoming the top prospects that are not with the former top prospects in the majors now. So these guys are probably going to come up a little bit after we're competitive, but 2024, 2025 seems about right to me.
Yep.
All right, so we want to move on to our final pick of the draft, which was pick number 133, and it was kind of a shocker here. We took Carter Baulmer. Great name, by the way. This was another one of my favorites of the draft. Ranked number 102 on Pipeline. He's a high school pitcher. This is a great pick. So, Matt, what were your immediate reactions to this one?
Yeah, for Baulmer, I mean, I was immediately thrilled. I mean, this is the only pitcher of the draft, so I wanted to see some pitching kind of infused in, and you want pitching every year to come into your system, especially in the hitter-friendly ballpark that is Camden Yards. This was my favorite pick of the entire draft. I gave this an A. Immediately after he was drafted, Jim Callis said it was a steal, especially if he was signable, and the Orioles are not going to draft somebody who's not signable. So I think, his fastball is 90-94, but I think that's kind of a good thing, because you don't want a high school pitcher blowing out his arm before he even gets to pro ball. And he's got, what looks to be a pretty good breaking ball. Doesn't use his changeup a whole lot, but he can show that it has some pitchability to it. And I'm really, really jazzed up about this pick.
Yeah, me too. It's a great pick. And you say it's only 90-94, and that's true. But there is a ton of break on that fastball. So that's really good to see. He's got a curveball, just locks hitters up that I've seen. This is a guy also who's thought unsignable. And like you said, they wouldn't draft him if he wasn't going to be signable. So they got him. This is going to be a huge hofer slot. I'm not sure how much it will be, but the pick value was around $400,000 to $500,000. I can't remember exactly, but this will be probably somewhere in the middle of the millions. He will get a nice chunk of cash.
It was $422,000.
Yep. Okay. So that he will probably sign for around 1.7, like Mayo's looking at. The Orioles, obviously, with Heston Kjerstad, save so much money. And that's another thing that, I really 180'd on Heston Kjerstad, because we got these two guys at the end of the draft. I thought they were both smash hits. I loved it. I'm going to give him a B+. I know he's another guy that I think has got a lot of development to do, but as any high school pitcher, huge upside. I mean, if he works out, this could be a huge get for the Orioles. Like you said, Jim Callis called it a steal. I'm super excited about this one too. He's got a Baulmer name, which is just fantastic. I don't know how we're going to say this one. I don't know how we're going to say Mayo, because we have that Baltimore accent, Matt. But this is a good one.
You mean Kobe Mayo?
Yeah, I mean Kobe Mayo. Yeah, Gary Thorne might have some trouble.
Oh my God, I can't wait. I'm waiting for him with Kjerstad. It's going to be great.
Yeah, that should be exciting.
So we're going to talk about two more topics, but we want to hear from you guys that are listening. What is your overall draft grade for this draft, and why? Put that in the comment sections. We'll come back to it in a bit. But Zach, I want to hear from you. What do you think about the Orioles draft strategy for this draft?
It was odd. That was my first reaction. I think that a pick like Hudson Haskin is probably one of the weirdest picks you could possibly make. He's such an interesting guy and such an interesting player profile. I just thought it was a very odd, draft as a whole, and I think it was very analytically driven. Sig had a huge part in this draft, which is always good, because Sig's he's a genius. So you can't honestly deny what Sig has to say. But it was just a weird draft. I think they've had tons and tons of time to do, a pretty comprehensive draft board. Last year, they really didn't. So this is, I would call it odd. I really hope it all works out. I'm excited about all of these guys, and I'm ready to go.
Yeah, I think, I was not very happy with the draft coming out of last night. did some research, did some digging into a couple of different articles and a couple of different takes. And I think after that, I really appreciate this draft. It just, like you said, they went the opposite of everybody's strategy. But I think there's a really clear pattern that we're seeing. And that is we're going to take college bats that play up the middle.
Yep.
And we're not going to apologize for it. And if there's somebody, and we're going to take the best player available on our board. It's not going to be the same on your board, but it's going to be the same guy on our board, and we're going to stick with that guy. And one other note is that the top 3 guys that they drafted, their first 3 picks, all had the top exit velocities of any player in college baseball. So they're doing a clear strategy. This is clearly StatCast baseball, and I can only think of the Moneyball quote where they say, if we think like the Yankees in here, we will lose to the Yankees out there, and you got to think differently if you want to win in this game.
That's perfectly said. I think that, this is a Moneyball situation for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really appreciated this draft too. I really slept on it a few nights, and I said, wow, this actually came out pretty nicely, even if it is a little bit odd. I think we do get spoiled by, the Ravens consistently drafting these incredible players that turn out incredibly and always pan out. And they're always top prospects. And the Orioles may, not follow that to a T as well. But this is a good draft class. I'm going to give it an overall B+. I want to say to that. I don't think it was as good as like the Tigers or the Phillies, and there are a few other drafts that probably outdid this one a bit. Yep. But I think Mike Elias got the right guys for us. Obviously I want all these guys to succeed. If I don't like the pick, it doesn't mean I don't want them to succeed. Obviously, we're Orioles fans. We want to see the organization in the best places possible. But I'm pretty excited to see these guys. I hope we don't have to wait till spring 2021, but it looks that way.
Yeah, I'm going to be a little bit more pessimistic. I'm going to say C+. And after everything I just said, that kind of, contradicts it. But I didn't love the picks, and I hope it proves me wrong. And,
me too.
That's really all I have to say. It's just like, I so appreciate that they're trying to zag. And you bring up the Ravens. The Ravens play in a league where there's a salary cap, and in theory, every team is on the same plane. And with the Orioles, you don't have that situation. We don't have an influx of cash that we can be spending on these free agents. We got to figure out a way that we can develop these players and pick these players that are going to succeed in our system. And that's what they did. So we just got to see how it all shakes out.
That's exactly what they did. And that's one of the reasons I really 180'd on Haskin Kjerstad. I just looked at him as such a great fit for this organization. You've already got so much power, and these are not guys that are going to be just power. Like Mark Trumbo is just power. Chris Davis, just power. These are guys that can get on base too. They can walk. They're going to strike out a little bit. Kjerstad strikes out a little bit, but you've got guys like Adley Rutschman who's going to walk a lot too to make up for it. But this is a really talented lineup we're building right here, and it's a lineup of possibly 2020 guys. Some of the guys in 2020, like Hayes. You're looking at Haskin being a possible 2020 guy. They've kind of built a really interesting future lineup here, and obviously this is not what it's actually going to look like. There will be free agents and there will be guys that'll bust, but this is a really interesting strategy from the Orioles. But I'm really excited about it personally.
Yeah, and you mentioned like getting on base, like that's why they drafted Haskin Kjerstad, because Brad Seelig was talking about it. He said, this is a guy that we saw kind of crop up. He was in consideration, but he wasn't necessarily our top guy. But once they talked to him and they heard that, he's really in tune with plate discipline. He waits for his pitch. He doesn't chase anything.
He does. He does.
That's really sets the tone for your draft when you're saying this is going to be our guy and this is how we're going to draft from here on out.
Yeah, he really is a very patient hitter. I've watched multiple games now, full games with 4 at-bats each about him, and he's walked a lot in those games I've seen. There is some swing and miss in his game, and that's with any power hitter, but this guy can literally hit a home run to any part of the field. Now, that to me is extremely exciting. That to me is really what sold me on him. And Justin says, I give this overall class a B-. I love a good shortstop, but not if they can't hit. Mayo and Baulmer make up for it, and Haskin might be there, stud of the group, and the future MVP, Haskin Kjerstad. We hope so. That's the plan. Hopefully Heston will like to join us on this podcast pretty soon. I don't know, but that'd be nice.
Little eyes emoji going up.
You never know. You never know.
Anything else before we get out of here, Zach?
No, but baseball looks like it might be coming back pretty soon. Manfred said he's going to implement possibly a 50-game season, and we'll see who's on that taxi squad. We'll get to see some possible prospects. I'm excited for that, and hopefully we get all these draft picks signed pretty soon. We'll see who goes over slot, who goes under slot, and hopefully Orioles do pretty well.
Should be exciting. Exciting times in Birdland. As always, you can follow the podcast on Twitter at FoulPolePod, as you see on your screen. Definitely subscribe to us on YouTube. Thanks to everyone who attended our live stream of the draft. We ended up with like over 170 views, which is huge for us, and we got a bunch of new YouTube subscribers. So we're definitely happy with that. Thank you to our guests. We had Dylan Atkinson come in, Erica Aditi, we had Vasilios Nicolau, we had Paul Valley, Ryan Blake, Josh Soroka. I think I got everybody in there, but as Vasilios gives the draft a B-, pretty consistent with what we're saying.
Fair enough.
And as always, if you want to just do the audio version, we appreciate that too. We're on iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. And we would greatly appreciate if you go on iTunes, give us that 5-star rating. Really helps us out in the rankings. And we want to be the #1 Orioles podcast.
That's for sure. I do want to plug a few of the guys who were on this podcast the other day. Vasilios has his Extra Point show, a great podcast. Go listen to it. He covers all Baltimore sports. You could definitely go listen to that. Ryan Blake does write-ups for Prospects Live, so definitely go check him out. Paul Valley's Payoff Pick show. And there's so many others. Eric does daily write-ups on Barstool. Go check him out. Everyone who's on here, definitely check them out. They do great work, and go follow them on Twitter. So for sure.
All right. Thank you so much for listening, and we will talk to you next week.